a test. And then, so those were the A's. That's all of these and these. Then the ones in the middle here, these are often called the transition elements. And in these, we're starting to fill the D sublevel. So if we're going with the old convention, they're often called the group B elements, and we don't refer to them a lot. I mean, I'm not going to use numbers for them or anything. Most of the time when I talk about them, I'm going to call them the transition elements. But you can see that they do have down here, there's the B's in there. In the new convention, it's just numbers 3 through 12. But make sure you know them as the transition elements. And what's happening in these is we're starting to fill the D sublevel. So, you know, they're kind of showing you here potassium would have filled the 4s1. Calcium, you know, 4s2. And now we're going back. Scandium is now filling, you know, 3d1. You know, if we continue on the chart, you know, titanium, it's going to fill here, you know, and so on. So we're starting to fill these D sublevel here. Those are the transition metals. Notice that the D level is always behind. You will always be filling one behind when you're filling Ds. Notice we started on the 4. We were in the 4s, but we're filling 3 Ds. Ds are always one behind your 4 or your S level. One behind the S. And then the bottom of the chart, if you look at the bottom of the chart, we have the what are known as the lanthanides. And these are atomic numbers 57 to 70, and those we're filling the F sublevel. Okay. The other ones, and these kind of, you know, they each row gets its own name. These are known as the actinides, and if you notice, they're named after the first element in those. And these are now filling this, you know, the 5Fs. These guys are filling these guys in here. Okay, and those are elements 89 to 102. These are the Fs, and you'll notice that, you know, we've filled on, if we go back to the other one, we've filled a 6s, then we're filling a 4f, or what, and the actinides, we're actually filling we've filled the 7s, and then we've gone to the 5f. So you'll notice that Fs are always 2 behind what you're filling in your S's. Okay, so we said D's were always 1 behind, F's are always 2 behind. So if you look at the periodic table, look at the whole thing, you can see how this was built. And you know, it's what the most interesting thing about this is that Mendeleev was putting this together without knowing about electrons, without knowing about sublevels and all those things. And he put them together based on properties, and you know, it ends up being, well, we understand now why it's together that way, and it has to do with the electrons and the sublevels and so on. So all of these guys right here, these are known as the S block because that's what you're filling. You're filling the S sublevel. Over here, these are known as the P block because you're filling in the P sublevel. In the middle, these transition ones, these are the D block. You're filling the D sublevel. And down here, the lanthanides and the actinides, sometimes known as the inner transition metals. Okay, these guys are filling the F block. So be aware of that. You know, you can always just look at the periodic table now and figure out, oh, well, we're going to be filling a D. That's where I should be ending. And, you know, one of the things that you should notice if I'm here, that I'm filling a D1. If I'm here, I'm filling a D2, D3, and so on. That's how it works. Here's a P1. Here's a P2, here's a P3, here's a P4, and so on. That's how it is. Now, let's talk about it. We've been talking about the groups or families. Let's talk about the periods. And notice that we're just doing the representative elements. We're just taking those 1A through 8A as we go across here, talking about the periods. And we've got, you'll see on the periodic table, there are 7 periods, and this particular one is not full yet. We haven't found the elements all the way across, although, and as far as found, they were actually making them. They're not finding them. They're creating them in the lab. And I believe the latest one was 115. They had previously created 116, so I think that's how far we are as of now. Okay. So let's take a look at these, and what I want you to do on your sheet, instead of writing in, the word period, don't put that in there. I want you to put the name of the group, and we've talked about this, so I want you to tell me, for these guys right here, the ones we're looking at, okay, I want you to put in the name of that group in that blank. So write in what the name of that group is. And notice here, this is what they're trying to show you. Okay, 2S, that's this one. 3S, that's this one. 4S, that's this one. Notice that 4S is in row 4, 3S is in row 3, 2S in row 2. And so I think what they're trying to point out here, whoops, wrong one, is that last level, the outer level, that tells you what row in the periodic table you should be in. So you should be able to look at an element like rubidium, and you say, oh look, it's in row 5. We know it's in group 1A, therefore it should be a 5S1. Should be able to do that. Okay? Or we could say lithium. Hey, that's in row 2, so it must be a 2S1. Okay, once again, in group 2, in these now, in the blank on your outline, put in the group name that we've talked about for those. Put in the group name. Don't just write in the word period, put in the group name. And once again, take a look. Here's our 2S2. We're looking at that one. Here's our 3S2. We're looking at that one. So you should be able to go down here and say, hey, barium. All right, I'm looking at barium. It's row 6. It's in group 2. Ah, that's a 6S2 because I know those are my S blocks. I'm good at that. I can figure that out. If we move across to the other side now remember, now we're taking out all those in the middle here. But now we're looking at these guys right here, okay? And they're always going to be some kind of S2, P1. So if we're looking at boron, it's 2S2, 2P1. Aluminum, 3S2, 3P1. Gallium, 4S2, 4P1. But notice that we've got some D's in there now. Because once you get to the 4th level, you've got some D's filling behind you. You've filled your D sublevel before you got to the P's there. But you should still be able to tell me the valence electrons. And really, those are the important ones. So you should be able to look at indium, for instance, and say, hey, it's in row 5. It's one of those 3A ones, so I know it's going to be some kind of S2P1. You should be able to say, oh, it's a 5S2, 5P1. So at this point, what I want you to be able to do is look at the periodic table and tell me at least the outer configuration of these 1A through 8A elements. Once again, let's move across. We're over at the halogens now. Okay, so we're talking about these guys. Notice a 2S2, 2P5, 3S2, 3P5. When we get to row 4, remember we're going to have some D's in there. But if we rearrange these, and this is why we rearrange, we don't have to worry about it. You don't see that. So when you rearrange, you just know, hey, the outer level, and that's what we're talking about, is 4S2, 4P5. So I said, hey, give me the outer level for iodine. You'd say, oh, all right, it's a halogen. It's in group 7. I need 7 of them, so it's 5S2, 5P5. Okay? Now, you should be able to do that for every element in this group, in this representative elements. The first row sometimes is considered to be a little bit special, mostly because they're not filling a P sublevel. There's no P in level 1, and so it's a little bit different. Hydrogen is listed on these sides over here, but it's not like those in that it's not a metal. All of those are metals. Hydrogen's not, but you'll notice that it still gets listed on this side. Although if you look at most periodic tables, there's usually a gap in there, so you kind of understand that it is a little bit different. So hydrogen's not a metal, but it acts in similar ways that these do. It will still form a lot of compounds in the same thing. So if we're talking about compounds formed with chlorine, you'll get one hydrogen and chlorine. You'll get one lithium and chlorine. You'll get one sodium and chlorine. They still tend to have similar properties to that. Helium, unlike the other noble gases, helium does not have a P sublevel. All the other ones are S2, P6. Helium, just S2. But that's a full sublevel, or full level for that matter. And so it's very stable, and it doesn't want to react. So all of these noble gases, that full levels, when you get those S2, P6s, very stable, they don't react. In fact, that's why the noble gases weren't found for a long time, because they didn't form compounds. Most elements were separated from the compounds that they formed, and that's where they found them, they discovered them. But the noble gases don't form element or compounds, so they didn't do that. They couldn't find them. So for a long time, there wasn't anything listed. All right, that's it. Unfortunately, I forgot to put in a cute little joke here at the end. So this is my last slide, and that would be the end of it.